Um, so tonight we're going to be playing with doing some masking, and sorry about my arm moving up and down because my iPad's in front of me. Let me move it over to the side so it's a little better and I'm not hanging over anybody. So we're going to do some masking and some watercoloring and show you a couple different ideas for how I watercolor. And I don't always watercolor with my paint. Sometimes I watercolor using stains, paint, liquid pearls. But tonight I'm going to show you how to watercolor using ink pads. Hi, Peg. Hope you're feeling better tonight. And I guess we're going to start. People will catch up and go from there. So again, I'm from Anthony's Creative Classroom. Some of you know me from my previous stamp line life of Anthony's Papercraft. And tonight, I'm going to introduce you to one of my favorite fun companies from the UK, Josh Griffiths Studios, and his stamp line is called Beyond Stamping. So I'm going to slide over here products we're going to use tonight. So I have quite a bit of stuff out here. I may not use all these ink pads, but I just want a variety of greens and browns because the card we're going to do tonight, you all saw just the black outline image. This is the actual card we're going to do. It won't look exactly like this because no two watercoloring projects are identical. But these are Josh's stamps, and they're a form. This set that I'm using is a form of scene building, but it's not like the scene building you've seen me do in the past with mountains and water and trees and whatnot. So this is more done as illustrations versus scenery. So you can see Josh's lines and his technique for his illustrations. So I suggest that you find him on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and follow him. And he is an artist, and he will show you a whole lot more than I'm going to show you tonight. I'm by no means a watercolorist. I just do what I think looks good to me and makes me happy when I'm working on it. So that's kind of where we're going to go from. Hi, Joan. Hey, Mary Jones. And we're going to get started. And I promise I will find a new word going forward for the word It's getting better. It's not as bad as it used to be. So we'll come back to this card again as we do some work with it. But before we start this card, I'm going to show you a couple of masking techniques, some of it with Josh's stamps and some of it with Tanya's stamps from Peddlers Den. So I'm going to show you the Peddlers Den masking first, and then we'll go back to the masking with this because this is the card we're going to make this evening. So let me slide this out of the way. And I'm just going to grab a piece of cardstock, white cardstock, just 80-pound cardstock. And let me get in the camera. And we're going to do some masking with some Peddlers Den stamps. So Peddlers Den, as you all know, is scenic stamping, and it is based on mountains, trees, waters, people. They also have standalone stamps that are flowers, people, fishing. There's all kinds of stuff, stencils, paper, you name it, they have it. So the masking paper that I get from Peddlers Den, and I will have a link for that later, comes on a roll, and it's called Eclipse tape. And it's a tacky tape, and the whole thing is adhesive on the back. It's reusable. You can use it until it doesn't stick anymore. And if I'm doing a bunch of cards at one time, I will take and make several masks, cut them out so that I have it. And I'm going to show you how to make a mask on here tonight too while we have this tape out. I'm just going to come over here and tear a piece off. When you're working with a mask, it doesn't have to be the absolute perfect, flawless inking that you're going to do. So I'm going to make a mask of this mountain. So here's my current mask that I have, and you can see I've used it several times. It will still stick, but I want to show you how to make a new mask. So and it's more important when you're making the mask that you have more of the top of the stamp than the bottom. So you can see on here, my stamp is hanging off the block. I'm not going to worry about that because that's going to end up behind something, which is why we're making a mask. So I'm going to take my ink pad and I'm just going to quick ink my stamp. Like I said, it doesn't have to be a flawless stamping. And I'm just going to stamp the image. There's my mountain. So then I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim out my mask. And when you trim your mask, it's important that you cut just inside the line and not on the line or not past the line, because then you end up with a shadow on your card. So I'm just going to quick, and this doesn't have to be an exact cut. I'm just going to come real quick. Let me get in frame and just kind of cut this out. When you're using stamps like this, it's more important to use the masking paper than you can with a Post-it note because the image is too big. Post-it notes don't have adhesive on the whole thing, and also they don't stay sticky long enough for what you're going to do. If you use a Post-it note, it's done after one time. So that's cut out that quick. So that's how I would make a mask. You can see I have extra paper down here. That's not going to matter. So I'm going to set my used mask off to the side, and we're going to start making a card, do some masking on this plain white piece of paper. Oh, thank you, Rita, for the birthday message. Today is my birthday. I'm officially old. I'm 65 today, and I've been having a good day. Had a family phone call with all my siblings, so it's been a fun day. You know what? I'm going to fold this over and cut this off real quick. And you can see I've learned habits from other crafting friends. I don't always use my trimmer because I can always even it up later. So here's my card front. And first thing I'm going to stamp, I want to stamp my barn. So when you think of masking, masking is going to help you put things behind. So typically you would think you're going to build up and start from the back and move forward. With masking, you want to move from the front and move backwards so that your main image is the whole image. So I'm going to start out by stamping a barn. So there's my barn. That's my main image. This is the image I want in the front of my card. So I previously made a mask for my barn. So I'm just going to line up my mask just to the inside line of the stamped image. and press that down. So now here's my barn, and the next stamp I'm going to stamp is going to end up behind the barn instead of having an image on top of the barn. So when I go to stamp, I'm going to stamp some trees and some water. And I can figure out where I want to put this. So I'm going to stamp this right about here. Okay, so you can see where those trees are sitting on top of the barn. If I didn't have a mask, that would end up messing up my image. Okay, so let me peel the barn mask off, and now you can see that the barn is in front of the trees and the water. Okay, any questions so far? Hi, Georgia. Thanks for the birthday wish. Okay, so I want to continue on. I'm going to add something else to this scene. So I'm going to put the mask back on my barn. Okay, because I still want to cover that up. And I'm also going to put a second mask over my trees and my water. So I'm going to line this up, and you can see this mask is well used. So this is going to come up here, and there's enough of it clear down here I can use that for lining up my mask. So I'm doing double masking now, because, and you can see how this mask is wearing out, but for what I'm going to do, I can just use my fingernail, burnish it down. I probably won't use this mask again, but now I'm masking my trees and my barn because I want to put another image behind. But I need to change blocks for the stamp I have. So give me just 1 second so I can, this stamp needs to go onto a bigger block. Okay. And also when you're scene stamping like this and you're masking, your images don't have to be perfectly on the block. So now I'm going to come back and I'm going to ink up my mountain stamp. And then I'm going to put this over top of the barn and the trees. Okay, so now I have this big hot mess on here where I have all of this stuff sticking up. So I'm going to peel off my mask for my trees, and now I'm going to peel up my barn. So now my trees and everything are behind the mountain. And you can see I have a little bit of a halo here around my trees, and that's because I didn't have my mask in exactly the right spot. I had it a little high. So how am I gonna fix that? I am going to just take the edge of my stamp and I'm going to actually I'm just going to take the bottom edge of the stamp and I'm going to tap it in my ink pad, and I'm just going to come in here with the corner and just fill in and just get a little bit of lines in this space. So when I color it, it won't matter. So it just kind of filled in where the mountains were a little high. Let me hold that up closer to the camera. So this is where I missed with my mask, and you can see I just put in a few more lines. So then I would just color this image the way I wanted to color it. So that's how I do masking with multiple layers. So let me scroll real quick, see if I have any questions, and then we're going to move on with tonight's project. Okay, so that's how I would do masking with multiple layers. Again, I would still save the barn mask, and this one I just made today. I would just put these in the packet with my stamps. So we're going to set those off to the side, and I'll put those with my stamps when I put them away. And we're going to start working with the stamps from Josh. And I'm going to show you those stamp sets real quick after I pull all of this back down in here. And I've done all my stamping. When I watercolor, I use VersaFine Black Onyx. It is waterproof once it's dry, and I do dry it on watercolor paper with my heat gun just for a brief second. So the first stamp set that we're going to use is Storybook Animals, and this is that stamp set. So there's some ducks and some ducklings, some rabbits, a fox, a bird, couple of hedgehogs, an owl, a mouse, a couple of squirrels. And tonight we're going to use one of the squirrels, the bear, and this bunny rabbit. So that's what we're going to use out of this set. And out of the set, this is the set with custom Woodland, and it's all trees and grasses and flowers. There's some mushrooms and stones down here, and we're going to use one of the pine trees. These are some leaves I can add to my tree branch, and we're going to use the flowers, and I might pull this grass stamp in as well. So again, this is the card that we're going to make from this stamp set. And you can see how the rabbit and the squirrel are in front of the bear, and that's done with the masking. So in this case, excuse me, a little bit of a tickle today. And the squirrel and the rabbit are in front of the bear. So I've already made masks for those. Yep, Georgia, it's not difficult once you see the process. So, and that's why I'm going to be here on Wednesday nights. And I will be on Wednesday nights going forward at 7:30 p.m. So I will try always to put a little message out on Facebook and Instagram about what I'm going to be doing ahead of time so that you get an idea if it's something you're interested to watch. If you miss it, you can watch the playback. Excuse me. You can watch the playback on Facebook, or I also created a YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel is also Anthony's Creative Classroom. And when those videos get uploaded, all the questions at the beginning, can you hear me? Is everybody here? Anybody here? All of that will be edited out, so it will start just with when I start my process for the night. So you won't have to wait 4 minutes or drag the counter ahead like 3 or 4 minutes before the video starts, because I always try and log on a little earlier to make sure there's that word again, to make sure that the video's working and the sound is on and everybody can hear me. I'm still getting used to it. I did get my new camera, which has a zoom. Hopefully it's a little clearer than the old camera. And we will just continue on. And there's that word one more time. So I'm going to set this card in front of me so I have a little guide of what I'm doing. And I'm going to move these products out of the way. And you'll see how I'm using them and when I'm using what and where we go from there. So I have a piece of watercolor paper already taped down to my mat that we're going to work on tonight. And it's a piece that is 4.5 by 6.5 or so, but it gives me room to work, and then I trim it down. So if I get a weird blob of color down here around the edge of the tape, it's going to get cut off before it goes on the card. So I have room to work to have a little bit of a mess around the edges. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my squirrel and my rabbit stamp, and I'm also going to grab my bear stamp. So one of the things I learned from watching Josh's video, and he actually used this bear with a couple other critters, which is where I got my idea for today. I'm going to take my bear stamp and I'm going to set it on my paper and figure out where do I want my bear to go. That way I have an idea of where I want to position these stamps. But remember, because the bear is going to be in the back, I'm going to stamp him last. That's the biggest thing with masking, is what's in the back doesn't happen first. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to ink up my squirrel stamp. And again, I'm stamping with the VersaFine Onyx Black. I'm going to stamp my squirrel. Easy stamp. They're not hard to use. And then I'm going to bring my bear back in, because my bear's going to be facing this way, so that I make sure that my rabbit doesn't cover his face. So we're going to set him in here, and we're going to put the rabbit about here. Okay. The watercolor paper I'm using is Canson XL, and I think it's 140 pounds. I will look and send you. Actually, just everybody hold on one second. Let me look right now. I'll grab the pad. I can find things because my room is clean. So this is the watercolor paper I'm using. And I buy it in the 11 by 15 because there's 30 sheets in here, and I can get a whole lot of card fronts out of this sheet, as opposed to buying the smaller pad that's 5 by 7. So this for me is a little more economical. It's one of the few things I do purchase at Michael's, and I wait for it to go on sale. So there's 30 sheets. It's 140 pound, and it's watercolor paper, and it's cold press. I know there's cold press and hot press, and like I said, I'm not a watercolor artist. I don't know the difference. I just always grab the one in the blue pad because I know it works for me. And it's got a little bit of a grain to it, but it's smooth enough that it's easy to work with, and my stamped images don't lose anything in the gaps of the paper. Yeah, Sue, I love the squirrel too. He is so cute. I like the deer as well. But there's two squirrels, and it's nice that things are facing opposite directions. The fox is adorable. If you go on Josh's YouTube channel, there's an image where he used the bear and I guess it's a seal, and he used the fox, and he used different trees and flowers and stuff that I'm using tonight. So now I've got my masks, and so I didn't lose them. I taped them to my computer, and I'm going to put my mask over my rabbit. The smaller the mask, sometimes the harder it is to get in the right place. And here's the little mask for my squirrel. And I need to move him up just a little bit so I don't get bear in his tail. Okay, so there's my masks. So now I'm going to ink up my bear. And once I get ink on him, I can see him better to see exactly where I want to place him. So because I have the black lines, I can see where he's going to end up. So I'm just going to stamp him right about here. Okay. So there's my bear. And it looks like a mess right now because the masks are in the way. So once I remove the mask, everything ends up in the front. Okay, any more questions so far before I continue on? Okay, so again, I'm using this same ink pad all night long to do all of my work. So I'm going to grab my pine tree next. And I'm going to grab just a little bit of a piece of masking paper off my roll, because I don't want this tree to come all the way down. I also need to put the mask back on my rabbit because part of the tree trunk is going to go behind the rabbit. Okay, so I got my tree inked up. I've got this extra little scrap here of masking paper. I'm going to move over here. Push the ears back down, and then actually I'm going to move this down. And stamp the tree. Okay, so I can take this little piece of masking paper out, and I'm going to save this in case I want to mask something on the other side, and then take the mask off my bunny. And now my tree is partially behind the bunny as well. I am going to stamp one more tree, which I didn't do in the original card, and I'm just going to stamp it over here. So I have two trees instead of one, like I had on the first one, because I had a little bit of a blank space over here and I wanted to fill it in. So on the other side, I'm going to take this tree trunk and use this one over here. Okay, so there's that tree. And I want to add onto this tree, so I'm taking another branch. And what I want to do is when I'm going to connect something together and I don't want a big harsh line, I'm going to blot off just a little bit of ink from the bottom edge of the stamp. And I'm going to add this right in here. Okay. And there's this one little spot that it doesn't line up. No problem. I'm going to take a black micron pen and just continue the line down into the tree. No one knows, and it's just where the stamp landed, and I just filled it in. And then I have 3 more stamps that I'm going to use to add the leaves to the top of my tree. Okay, I have a little gap here. Just going to come down and fill it in. And I have this leaf over here, so I'm just going to add an extra branch. So it's that quick and simple. Now I want to add on my card some lines for my landscaping. I don't have a stamp for that. So here's where you have to go a little free-handed, and I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to just go like this, come over here under my bear, and continue over here. And then I'm going to come in here. I need some ground under this tree so it's not floating. Come like this, come up under the squirrel, under the bunny, under this tree, and back down. So where I've drawn my lines over the trees, I'm just going to come in with my eraser and erase those couple lines over the trees. Thank you, Rita. I know you like looking over my shoulder instead of looking across the front of the table too. So I'm having fun with this. So now for me to do my next step, I need to turn my board just a little bit and then I'll turn it back. But I want to get it in the frame. So I have these pencil lines that I drew. I need to ink them in. So I'm going to take my micron pen and I want to make sure I don't draw the lines through the trees. And then I'm going to come over here and pick up the line under the bear. Skip the tree and come over here. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this pencil line down here. Because I don't want all my critters floating in the air. Okay, so let me get centered again. I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to erase off of here where I drew the pencil lines because I'm sure my pen did not stay on those pencil lines. The pencil lines are just to give me a little guide. Okay, so there's my scene. So I have one more thing I want to stamp. Actually, two more things I want to stamp. I want to stamp a couple of flowers in the foreground. So I have my two little flowers. Can stamp that one there. Do another larger one here. And I'm going to do one over here. And then a couple small ones in here as well. So now I'm done with all of my stamping. So because I'm on watercolor paper and I've used the VersaFine ink, I just want to give it a quick little dry just to make sure all my ink is dry. Doesn't need a lot, and you don't need the big powerful heat gun if you have a small one like this. So, okay. Everybody with me so far? All right, so I'm done stamping. Now the first thing I want to do, color, is I'm going to color my squirrel. So let me get my stamps out of the way. Okay, so I have, slide this over a little bit, but I want to stay in camera. I have a 6x6 acrylic block that I'm going to use for my palette. If you have a glass mat, you can use that. You can use your craft sheet. You can use a regular acrylic block, but I have these, and this is what I'm going to use to do my inking and my inks for my base. So the first thing I'm going to do for my squirrel is I'm going to take the Distress Ink color tea dye, and I'm going to apply the ink right onto my block. Okay? And then I have a little jar with some water, and I have a few paintbrushes here that I'm going to use for different things. And if you don't have all these inks and you want to do this and don't have watercolors, go somewhere and buy a set of Crayolas. Those Crayola paints we had in elementary school are fabulous paints. I'm also going to zoom in a little bit. So give me 1 second to find my mouse on my desk. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so you have room to see what I'm doing. That's one thing I like about my new camera. It has a zoom. And I can move around so that things end up right back where they're at. So you can see all the action that's happening. So I'm very happy that I have my new camera. Okay, and I'm going to move my palette over here so that you can see it better, and a piece of white paper. So I have just put my ink on here, and I just have my jar of water. I'm going to wet my brush, and I'm going to come in and dilute the ink to give me some paint. I also use a paper towel, and I like to use the blue shop towels because they hold up better. Get some ink, dab it off, and I'm just going to come in and paint my squirrel. And like I said, I am not a painter. I just do what makes me happy. So it is this easy to paint using Distress Inks. I want some spots a little darker, so I'm going to add some more color. Get his feet. And if I go out of the lines, the world is not going to end, because I'm not painting the Mona Lisa. I'm not painting something for a customer to hang in the gallery. So there's my squirrel. Now I do have two of these little blocks, and I'm going to switch. I'm going to use, because I don't have some grays for out of Distress Ink, I'm going to use my Memento ink pads to do my squirrel. So I'm going to use two different shades. One's got a little bit more blue in it than the other one, and I'm going to mix them together. And don't worry, I'm touching one pad to the other. It's not going to contaminate the ink. So I'm going to come back in with the same paintbrush, grab some water, mix my paints, my inks to create a paint color I like. I'm going to dab some off because I don't want a big black dark blob of ink on my bunny. If I need to thin it out, grab some more water on my brush and add some more water onto my palette. The other thing I want to do a little bit of pink, so I'm going to put a little bit of pink on my other mat. Clean my brush, grab some of this pink, and make sure I don't have a lot of gray in it. Come in and put a little bit of pink in his ear, a little bit of pink in his nose. Okay, if you get it too wet, just grab your paper towel and blot it off, and we'll just do it again. So I got too much water into my ink. So I'm going to come back again. I'm not going to re-wet my brush and come back in and add some pink. And now I don't have a big puddle of pink. So I can just dab in the paint. Georgia, I'm just trying to stay in the lines. I'm was I was the kid with the coloring book that had to outline everything before I colored, and the bear's going to be brown anyway. So if I get some brown from the squirrel into the bear, the world's not going to end. So come back and finish my gray. I want a little bit more water because this has been sitting for a minute. So the inks will dry out, so you may have to add some more water to them. And come back and add some more gray into my bunny. And say I have this dark spot, I can come in and just pick up some plain water and take some of that away and move it up. Thin it out, move it up, and then come and do just a light little blot on that puddle. Now I did get a little bit extra pink in my bunny. That's okay. It's giving me some extra color and some detail in him. And when it's dry, the pink won't be so pink in the bunny. Okay, so I'm going to hit it with the heat gun just for a minute to get those colors dry. And I have the paper taped down so that, number one, it holds it where it needs to go. And as I'm working, it helps to keep it flat. So, and I'm just going to take this and wipe this gray off because I'm finished with it. And I'll set that one off to the side. And I'm going to come back to my other one and I'm going to wipe the pink off of it. So that's not on there. Okay, I'm going to move on to the bear. So I'm going to grab another brown and add it right on top of this brown that's here. So it's always, you can very easily like this mix your colors. Like I said, with Distress ink pads, you're not going to contaminate the pad. So I wouldn't worry about that. And because the bear is a bigger spot, I'm going to grab a bigger brush. I'm going to come in and mix my colors up. Dab a little bit off and just come in. Yeah, it's a huge brush. And color my bear. It's a big brush, but the tip is very pointy. I feel like I should sing while I'm painting. I just have to remember you all are out there live while I'm painting. So I just want to get a coat on him, and then I can come back, clean up the edges a little bit, and add some shadowing to him. And I have a friend, her name is Desiree. She's another artist, and she does a technique. I'm going to add some more ink to this because I want to make it the next part of him a little bit darker. So I'm going to add a little bit more frayed burlap, and then I'm going to add a little bit of walnut to it just to make him a little darker. She refers to painting like this as messy watercoloring, and it's a perfect idea because we're not painting the Mona Lisa. So now I'm mixing up 3 different shades of paint here, and I'm going to go, now that I want to do some detail and I have him colored, I'm going to grab a smaller brush that I was using before and come along the lines of the stamp and add some more detail. And I can, if it's too heavy, I can thin it out and move it into other places on the bear. And if your palette ends up too wet, just wipe off the ink and start again. Because that big brush did add a lot of water into this ink. So now I can just come back in and add some more detail with this brush. So that's how I color, and this is how I watercolor. So I'll dry it real quick and see if I want to add anything else to it. Y'all are very quiet. No, not ever a whole lot of questions happening out here tonight. So I've got a couple of blotches in it. I want to come back and fill it in and make him look a little smoother. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with him for now. So we're going to let that go. And I'm going to dry him one more time. And I'm going to grab my original color back again. And I want to fix this little bit of blotchiness in the squirrel. So I'm going to grab my brush, pick up a little bit of paint, tap some off, and come back in here and just add a little bit more to smooth out that light mark. And depending on how much water I add is how intense my color is. So that's the magic of the distress paint, because it's reactive with water, and once it's dry, you can add another layer on top of it and not reactivate and get a big puddle of ink from below. So yes, that is a paw on the bear, I forgot. Thank you very much. I missed a little bit over here on this side of him too. So let's get a little bit more ink over here. See, I'm glad you were watching to make sure I know what I'm doing there, Georgia. You know me too well. So we're going to get a little bit of brown over here on this side of the bear, and then we're going to color his paw. I'll get a little bit more right there and a little bit above the squirrel's tail, and then blend that out. and we'll see how he is once he's completely dry. So the next thing I want to do, I'm going to do along the edges of my grass. And I started out my grass with a little bit of brown on the edges to make the edges just a little darker and a little bit more defined. So again, I'm going to keep using this same brush. I'm just going to come right along the edge of my landscape here and add in a little bit of brown. Okay, so there's just a little bit of brown in my landscaping. So I'm going to wipe this off because I want to switch to the greens. Rinse that off, set that off over here. I'm going to start out with a lighter green and then I'm going to add a darker green on top of it. So like I said, you could use a clear block. You could use, if you have a glass mat, you could use your craft sheet. You could use a piece of glass, whatever you have that you can ink, spread ink and water. You could use a piece of acetate if you wanted to. So I'm going to go back to the big brush, but I'm going to test it on my other paper. I'm going to get it wet, test it on here to make sure there's not a whole lot of brown left in it. Okay, and the brown that it's picking up is what's from in my water bottle glass here. So I'm going to mix up and dilute all this ink because I have all this area to paint. Okay, so now I'm going to tap off, pick up a little bit of color, and I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to use the side of the brush and fill in. Just going to go around the tops of the flowers. I can go right over the leaves of the flowers because that's not going to be a problem. And I also want to go over the top of the brown on that edge because I want to lighten up that brown and thin it out just a little bit. Need a little bit more water. We're going to come down here and pick up some more green. I'm going to add some more ink to my palette and pick up some, dilute that a little bit more with the water that's on the palette and what's already in my brush. And I'm going to come up and do the top. Josh's stamps are so fun to work with. And I only have these two sets. Actually, I'm getting ready to place another order. I did check the website tonight. The Storybook Animals set right now is out of stock. And I will keep an eye on that for you all, or you can follow on his website to see when it comes back in stock. I'm also going to send him a message and ask him if he knows when it's coming back. So I will add any of that information once the file's out on YouTube. You can check there for an answer about when it's coming back in stock. So let me get this part over here, a little bit of more water. come around the bottom of my squirrel here and blend everything out. Okay, this part right here in the middle is a little bit darker. I'm going to add some water onto that. And then I'm going to blot it up. To thin that out. And then dry my brush real well, pick up just a little bit of color, and come back and just make it a little bit darker, because it was just a little too dark for me. It just stood out way too much. So while that part is drying, I'm going to spin my block around. I'm going to grab a little bit of orange, put it over here on the corner, and grab a real tiny brush. I'm going to do my flowers real quick. Just tap some color into those flowers. And if you see your brush starts spreading out, it's too dry. And if I get a puddle, I can just come over here, take a corner of my paper towel, and blot it and soak some of that water right up. And you can definitely see if you zoom in close, and when I show you this picture after we're finished with this card, you'll see that I did not stay in the lines with those colors. Okay, I can see that my bear is a little dark over here, so I'm going to add a little bit more brown, and we're going to come back with a different brush, do this, and we're going to add a little bit more color here to darken up this side of the bear. And I can also wet this and try and move it around just a little bit. So if you end up blotchy, just add more color to the part that's not blotchy. And that'll take care of that. And just pat your color in. And then spread it around. And I am going to take some of this darker color and come back along the edge and define the outline of my bear. So watercoloring is similar to using colored pencils. It's all about building up. You're not going to get instant gratification the minute you add your first layer and think you're done. So that's how that works. Now I want to add some more green, some darker green on top of my grass. So I'm going to add a little bit darker green on top, and I am going to use a smaller brush than the one I used the first time to add just a little bit more green in this darker shade. And I want to add that darker green near the top where the brown is and pull that down. Because I want to add a little texture to my grass. Okay, you can see I got a big puddle right there. Come back and tap and just add a little bit more there. We're going to add a little bit more into the top half. And because it's grass, it doesn't have to be perfectly even. The bear looks like it's floating. Yeah, I need to get some more green up under him. See, I'm glad I got keeping all of you on here to keep me honest with what I'm doing and not missing paws and a bear floating in the air. So we're just going to come back up here and add some more color, some more green. Need to get a little bit right there. And I want to get a little bit right here to smooth this out. Okay, I'm going to come in with some water and thin his dark spots out. Just pull that down just a little. And then I'm going to do a little bit of blotting. And I'm going to come back and dry. Like I said, I am not a colorist, so or a watercolor artist. So I don't like this spot where it got a little bit blue looking. I'm just going to come back and add a little bit more green on top of that. And add a little bit more up here as well. All right, so I'm going to switch off and use a couple of Tombow markers. To orange and brown. And I'm going to use the markers on my trees. Because these spots are so thin. And I'm going to use them on this tree over here as well. Okay, so there's my tree trunks. And I'm just going to use a green marker quick to fill in my little branches here. So you can use mixed products together. You don't always just have to use the paints. So if you've got little tiny spots like this, grab a marker. And there you go. I'm still not happy with this, but if I add anything else to it, I'll just mess it up. So we're going to leave this like it is. Okay, so the only other thing I have to do is my sky. So I can wipe this all off. Does the bear look better now? He's not floating? Okay, so I'm going to grab a couple shades of blue. I'm starting out with a light blue. It's hard to see on my, and I'm using quite a bit of this light blue. And I'm going to go back to the real fat brush. Again, I want to make sure there's not a whole lot. See, there's still a lot of green in it. Need to get that off. And I just have a scrap piece of heavier weight paper over here that I'm just going to end up putting in the trash. So I just want to get all that, as much of that color off as I can. And I'm going to come in and dilute my blue, pat my brush dry, and because I got it so wet, I'm going to add a little bit more ink and just blend that in with the water that's already on the palette. Tap off, and I'm just going to come in and add color to my sky. And if you get a big puddle over here like I've got, I'm just working that from that puddle down in between my trees. It was just a little too wet. There we go. Now it's better. Add some more to that. And this is just my base color of this blue because I'm going to use a second shade of blue on it. So I'm just trying to get some color down as a base. I said we're not going for perfection here. We're not painting the Mona Lisa. And if there's spots that don't have any color, then that's okay too. And then I'm just going to come back with a little bit of water and kind of smooth it out. Grab the heat, dry it just a little bit. And I'm going to wipe this off. And I'm going to grab my darker blue. Tap off, come back and add some darker blue over top. And this dark part at the top, some of that is going to end up getting cut off anyway, so it's okay. You know what, Sue? When we get together, we'll play and we'll see what we need to do to help you along. Um, it's really easy, and what you could do too is start out with just a piece of paper and move color around and not worry so much about the the images you're working with, and just get used to the brush and see how your hands react to it. Um, so there's nothing that says you can't just grab a piece of paper, watercolor paper, and do a little bit of coloring and see where you end up. And if I have these blotches that there's no color, no big deal. I'm just going to come in here where it's real light around these trees and try and fill in just a little bit where there's a lot of white spots. And what it looks like now will look totally different once I pull the tape off of it. It will change the whole look of it once that tape is gone. So I got a little bit of green in here I want to try and get rid of in the squirrel's tail. So I'm just going to re-wet that color a little bit, and there we go. So, and I want to add a little bit of color to the bear's nose. So I'm going to grab a marker for that. A little bit of color on the squirrel's nose as well. So let me clear this mess out of the way, and especially the water, so I don't dump it everywhere. And I will clean my brushes later because I'm done with those. And I want to get all this other stuff out of the way. So, because now we're going to peel off the tape. And if you pull your tape at an angle, less chance of tearing the paper. And I have so much painter's tape, I am not going to try and save the painter's tape. What's worse if you try and add some ink or if you have some actual watercolors you want to use and you put it on paper and you don't like it, it's just paper and a little bit of time. Now there's the difference. Once I peel off all that dark blue paper, the whole image changes. So that's our image before I trim it down. Any other questions right now before I continue? I'm going to scroll back and see if I missed anything also. Okay, so I'm going to grab my trimmer, and you can see the difference already, how I said they won't look the same. My bear is different. My bear is really blotchy here. I'm not real happy with him. So this is either going to fix it or it's going to make it worse. And I'm just going over the watercolor with a marker. Smooth him out. He ends up a little darker, but that's okay. And because these markers are water soluble, we're going to add just a little bit of water on top of him. and thin out some of those lines from the marker. Color outside, so I'm going to take and push that color back in. And we're going to hit him with the heat gun just a little bit. There, now he's a little smoother. Dry a little bit from the back. Dry him a little bit more. So there's always ways to fix things up. Now he's not as blotchy as he was before. He's definitely darker. And I'm going to just take my black pen and go over the image a little bit and just define his face a little bit more and his eyes. So I'm just drawing lines right back over the stamped image. There we go. He's got his detail back. Oh, yep. Thank you. I missed the paw again. There we go. Thanks for catching that. 2 of you got me on that. So, okay. So now I'm going to trim him down. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off the white. Because then I can really see what I want to keep and what I want to cut off to make it fit on my card. I hope the trimmer's not too loud tonight. Okay, so I already prepared my card base and my layers that I have for this card. So all I have to do is trim this layer down to fit. So we're going to take a little bit off the top. And a little bit off the bottom. And I need to take some off of this side, some off of this side. And then that will just go right on my card. Changes the whole look once it's attached to a card. So what do you all think? And I think I did much better staying in the frame of the camera tonight too. So there are the card. This is the card I made before. This is the card I made today. I will be honest, I'm a little happier with the bear in the first card than the second card. But this is how we learn, we craft, and just because I'm showing you something doesn't mean I can't learn as well. So, thanks, Georgia, about the comment about loving the card. They're fun stamps to work with. Again, let me show you the 2 stamp sets. Oh, there's that one. And then here's the one with the woodlands. There's so much stuff in these sets that I did not even touch. I need to keep my masks because they're not wiped out yet. So, yeah, Debbie, I'm loving the new camera tonight too. It works so well. And I am going to order a couple more of these sets, and we will be playing with Josh's stamps again very soon. Again, this is the card we made today. And again, don't forget, we used the masking paper from Peddlers Den tonight. I don't remember how much this tape is, but so here's the information for the products that I used tonight other than the inks. So these are the two stamp sets from Josh's website, and this is the tape from Peddler's Den that we used for the masking paper. I know Tanya is around, so she doesn't travel again until next month. So she's on top of shipping orders. She got caught up from her last road trip and is working on new classes. So if you're going to go to Novi and you want to look up Tanya's classes, those go live, I believe, on the 27th at Great Lakes Mega Meet. So again, the stamps are Storybook Animals, which is currently out of stock. Again, I looked tonight. And the custom Woodland is the set with the trees and the flowers and the leaves and the stumps and all kinds of fun stuff. So I'm looking forward to playing with this. There's a stump, there's some grasses, some stones, some mushrooms, toadstools that I did not use on my card. And then there's all these other animals over here in this set. So please join Peddler's Den YouTube channel, and also join the Beyond Stamping at Josh Griffiths Studios. And please, if you haven't already joined my YouTube channel, it's Anthony's Creative Classroom. So that's what I have for you tonight, and I hope you enjoyed your evening with me, and I am very happy that you are joining me on this journey of creativity. Like I said, I'll be back again each Wednesday night at 7:30 Eastern Time. And please keep following me and giving me comments and feedback. It helps me improve what I'm doing and helps me give you all things that you're interested in doing. And also, if you want, you can send me a message through Facebook Messenger if there's something you're interested in seeing me show you. Always looking for helpful hints and information for things that you all want to see. Hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and thanks again for the birthday wishes too. And now I'm going to go get a cup of coffee and a piece of carrot cake. Hope you enjoy your evening. Thanks, everyone.